The Town are ready to embark on another campaign of Championship football as we look to return to the Premier League at the first time of asking, starting under the Monday night floodlights, with a home game against fellow relegated side Burnley. Alongside me to preview the game, I've got the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe. Jimbo, football is finally back.
About bloody time too.
Absolutely, yes. We'll preview the big game right after this intro.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls. We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the longest running Luton Town podcast, sponsored this season by Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. As I said in the intro, we are previewing the home game against Burnley, which takes place live on Sky Sports on Monday night, 8 p.m. kickoff for this one, under the floodlights. Well, half of it will be under the floodlights, won't it? Jimbo, well, we get started in the kind of difficulty that we had most of last season, really. The hardest game that we could possibly have had to begin, well, a roller coaster of a season.
It is, but we'd also have seen the rest of the programme in the Championship over the weekend because of this crazy Sky Sports deal putting the first game of the season on a Monday.
Are you happy with it on a Monday now, knowing that if it wasn't on a Monday, it would have been at Saturday at 12:30, which is an equally inconvenient time?
Yeah, I'm somewhat of a football purist that I want my football to be at Saturday at 3 p.m.
Yeah, I got bad news for you on that.
Not many of those going to happen this season.
Hen's teeth are about as rare as 3 p.m. home games for us this season.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not. The first game of the season is one of the best days of the year, one of the best days of the football calendar. You want it on a weekend, on a Saturday, nice sunny day. You know, it's one of the best drinking days of the year. And this is not going to happen. You're going to have to do something else for the entire weekend and then go to work on Monday and then go to the first game. So, no, I'm not really in favour of that. It is one of the probably the marquee games of the season, considering that both teams are in the Premier League, and so you would have thought that they'd want to make a bit more of a deal of it. I don't know. Maybe more people watch football on a Monday night, but it definitely doesn't benefit the people that actually go to the game. So you have to question who it's for. But here we are.
Like Sky care about the people who actually go to the games, as our much changed fixture list will allude to. Yeah, huge game. There's a reason why it's on Sky on Monday night. Why, like you say, it's the last one of the weekend. It's saved for last, and everything else. Is there a malfunction with this computer or something? Because we seem to have to play Burnley on the same weekend of August every single season. 2 seasons ago, it was at their place. Last season, it was meant to be here, but obviously the changes to Kenilworth Road meant that it couldn't take place here when it was meant to be the first home game. And now this season, they've doubled down and given us Burnley for the first home game. Can we just have someone else in August other than bloody Burnley, please? We're getting a bit fed up of seeing this lot, haven't we? Followed them up to the Premier League, followed them back down from the Premier League. Give us something different, lads, please.
Yeah, on the plus side, it's not a trek up to Burnley for the first game of the season, I suppose.
No, but I'm sure that'll be a bloody Monday night like it was last season as well.
Yeah, it'll be a Monday night or a Sunday at 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever they're planning to do this season. It's bonkers, but that's the world we're in now. Apparently everyone wants to watch the Championship. We'll see. But yeah, no, it's going to be the toughest game, I think. Notwithstanding that we don't really know what Leeds are going to be doing with the rest of their transfer window as of yet, but you'd have to imagine, I think anyway, that they're going to be up there. But Burnley will fancy themselves to go straight back up as much as perhaps Luton are predicted to as well. But they've splashed far more cash in this transfer window, and they had a pretty strong squad when they went up last season, or the season before, sorry. They were pretty good in the Championship from what I can remember, weren't they? But Luton started with a draw up at their place, so that sort of boded well for that campaign. It would be nice to play a different side that you hadn't played for a while, because for 2 seasons it's been in roughly in the same position in whatever league we've found ourselves in, isn't it? And fighting it out between themselves. But yeah, in their infinite wisdom, the fixture schedules has put it together. So I'm excited for the start of the season. Don't get me wrong, but it's one that's a bit more cautious about what might happen because of the unfortunate situation that we still haven't got a defence.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a neutral that you like Championship football, you would be looking forward to this game because, like you say, 2 of the 3 front runners in the betting, if the betting's to play out in reality, then, second and third teams in the league this season behind Leeds United, going at it Monday night. I mean, obviously the caveat to us playing on this Monday night is that neither of us have Carabao Cup ties next week, which is a right bonus because we've got enough travelling to do without getting sent to Exeter or here, there or everywhere like we did last season. So any game that we can miss out on is definitely a bonus. It'll be interesting to see what we come up against here, though, with Burnley, won't it? I mean, I say that they're a familiar opponent, or they are in terms of club that we've faced recently. But we faced them recently under Vincent Kompany, who had a very, very strict style of football that was not going to be changed for love nor money. He's got in the Bayern Munich job, so you'd have to say that it served him well. Obviously, it hasn't served Burnley as well because they've ended up where they started under it, albeit with a lot more exciting players and things. But you get the feeling that there's a lot more movement to come in their squad before, probably not before Monday, but certainly before the end of the transfer window. I've heard lots of rumours today. We're recording this in advance of this game so that we've got enough time to get this out to everyone. And obviously we don't want to be recording over a weekend ahead of a Monday night. So we have got this out a little bit earlier. So if Sander Berge has already gone to Manchester United, then do allow us that. But there's a lot of rumours that he is going to go to Man United. That would be a right touch because that pass that he put through to Lyle Foster last season is still giving me nightmares, and those two are still at Burnley, so I don't want none of the repeats of that. But you do just wonder just how strong Burnley are going to be on sort of September the 4th or 5th in comparison to Monday night.
You do, and also in terms of whether there's any sort of reconfiguration of the way they want to play, because it was very plan A, wasn't it, with Vincent Kompany, and it worked so fantastically in the Championship, and you have to give them credit for that, and not in the Premier League. That said, we both got relegated, so nothing really worked for the pair of us. So it's going to be interesting in that sense to see what Scott Parker wants to do with those players. Undoubtedly, they've got a squad full of very talented players.
Got 2 squads full of very talented players. Looking at their Wikipedia page,
but yeah, for this level, players that they've signed, as they did previously, players that could challenge for promotion in this division and then hopefully do a job once they get into the Premier League. It's quite, whatever you want to say, and the amount of money that they have spent is vastly outspent Luton, but most clubs do. They did seem to have a relatively decent policy of where they were trying to take the squad. It's just that the style of play perhaps didn't work. The ruthlessness that we found last year in the Premier League certainly killed them. They definitely tried to play too open when they've got world-class strikers hounding them, chasing them down in this pressing style that we all suffered from in the Premier League. So it didn't work in that sense. So it's whether Scott Parker can affect that much change over a summer. On the plus side for his CV, he's got Fulham and Bournemouth up from this division, which is probably one of the things that may have stood out for the Burnley board when they were picking him. So there's every chance that he can do it again. They're going to have one of the biggest budgets, we've all had parachute payments. It's just that Luton probably won't spend theirs, and that's a debate.
Well, on the squad anyway, yeah.
On the squad, yeah, it will go for the sustainability of the club, which is right at this stage of 2020's tenure. Whatever anybody ever wants to say, and however sort of brainwashed you are by the transfer window and Sky's reliance on the transfer deadline day as an actual thing to count down on, that that's not the world that Luton operate in. And if you don't like it by now, then you must have had 10 years of hell, because that's just the way it is. But look, it's been 10 years, decent 10 years, isn't it? And I think this will be the start of another, hopefully another good 10-year period. It's a rebuild job to a certain extent, but it's largely for Luton with all the same main characters that got them up and performed, relatively better than Burnley did in the Premier League last season. So, other than the very disappointment of that game at Kenilworth Road, where they won after Elijah got a late equaliser. Larson, who scored that worldie that did it, he's not there anymore, so that's a bonus. So they've got that, but they've got a lot of other very good players still on that squad. So it's not going to be a pushover by any stretch of the imagination, and made doubly difficult by the fact that potentially we haven't got a senior defender in the back line, or the back three anyway.
And with that lack of potential senior defender in the back three, Lyle Foster is therefore going to be a problem, isn't he? He was a problem when we did have senior defenders in the back three. As I mentioned earlier, he opened the scoring at Kenilworth Road last season with that lovely through ball from Berger, and there was just no catching him once he was away and gone. He finished it nicely. Had his problems after that, didn't he? From a mental health perspective, didn't go to the Africa Cup of Nations with South Africa, but did finish the season for Burnley. So presumably they're all behind him. I noticed he played in their last friendly last week and scored, which was annoying, because he's obviously going to be in good confidence coming here. And if we're going to get anything out of this game from a positive point of view, we need to try as wherever possible to keep tabs on him. Maybe not stop him, because if we've not got the defensive personnel to do it, at least stop the supply line to him.
Yeah, that it is less about the finish in that instance you're talking about, and the wide chasm that Sander Berger just was able to walk into, not for the first time in that game, it's the second or third time that he did it, and there was just nobody there picking him up, and he managed to play a fantastic ball through, and fair play. But they punished Luton really in that respect, but they have also got some very tricky and quick wingers that did well last season. I have to keep saying relatively for both of us clubs. I'm not, not shying away from the fact that we both got relegated. But they've got some very quick, powerful, useful wingers. So I think it would be quite an exciting attacking game. That's for sure. I mean, Luton can't do anything else at the moment but attack. So maybe Sky have seen in their crystal ball and got it right for one thing, that they're going to get an entertaining game.
Yeah, if you're tuning into Sky as a neutral thinking, I wonder if this will be 0-0, I'll tell you right now, it won't be 0-0. All the games between these two sides in the last two seasons, they've not been 0-0. They've not necessarily been the highest scoring games. Quite a couple of them have been 1-1 draws, but they could easily have been higher scoring games. With that in mind, I suppose Luton fans will immediately be turning their attention on the Burnley team sheet to the very top of it, because obviously we had a bit of a run-in with James Trafford and his meltdown after a perfectly good goal was given last season up at their place. Doesn't look like Trafford's going to be in goal, unfortunately. We would love him in goal. We are going to pepper this lot with crosses. We know that. They'll know that. Everyone will know that. And he cannot catch a cross for love nor money, that bloke. We know he can't. But unfortunately, when Muric went to Ipswich, the Ipswich goalkeeper, who was actually in goal throughout their promotion-winning season last season, Ledaki, I think it's called, came the other way. He'll be the number one goalkeeper. He looks a lot more assured, albeit Ipswich conceded a lot of goals last season as well, so even though they got promoted. So not watertight, but probably not going to have as much joy from crosses as we would have if Trafford was in goal.
Well, maybe not in the sense that you're going to have butterfingers for a goalkeeper, but there's still going to be the crosses.
There's definitely going to be that, yeah.
Doughty has been very good in the pre-season games that I've seen. Chio, not so much. I think he's still got
getting back to fitness.
A little bit way to get back to his, full sprightly self. But, Doughty was as good as anybody in delivering decent balls into the box in the Premier League, and he's very good in the Championship season before that. So he looks like he's got the bit between his teeth still, and that's a massive bonus. And also on that front, if he's going to be a supply line, Elijah looks well up for it in the games that I've seen. Obviously, it was devastating that he was out for so long at such a crucial period of last season, and one of the major contributing factors, I think, that relegation was there when halfway through the season we all thought it had been figured out, and he was firing. But he looks back onto that, and it's not just his attacking play, but it's his defending from the front, which I think we missed until there was that slight change after his injury, and they had Morris with the two slightly behind. Until they figured that bit out, there was just not the same sort of impetus going forward. But with Eli up there is absolutely, and also in the midfield just behind him, Clark is useful in that regard as well. So I think it's going to be an attacking game. It has to be, because all of Luton's current strengths are at the top end of the field.
Yeah, indeed. There's two interesting things from me from Burnley point of view here. Firstly, have they improved defending set pieces, because they weren't very good at defending set pieces last season? And secondly, this likely change in style, even if it's just tweaks, it has to be a change. We've seen enough Scott Parker sides to know that they don't play like the Vincent Kompany Burnley side did. If they've been fixed and put into operation so quickly, I mean, he was appointed relatively early in the pre-season piece, so they've had the full pre-season under him. But as we mentioned in the season preview, they're largely fitness exercises, really. They're not tactical masterclasses or anything like that. So this will be the first time that whatever tactical setup he wants to use will be in operation from a proper standpoint for the first time. So it'll be interesting to see if they're at one with each other, or whether, it does take 2 or 3 games to get going. Does he need to bring players in to be able to play the way he wants to play? Because whilst they were attractive to watch, Burnley, even when they won the league, there was a lot of sort of lighter weight players, wasn't there? Whereas Parker's sides, if you think of the Fulham and the Bournemouth sides that he won the league with or won promotion with, they had Mitrovic and Solanke as focal points.
Yeah.
There isn't that here for this Burnley side, unless he uses, Weghorst, who's been out on loan here, there and everywhere in the last couple of seasons. Clearly not a company player. He might be a Parker player. It's just hard to tell, really, isn't it? The analysts of our club are going to have a right old time of it trying to work this lot out, because there's not going to be many clues.
No, not many clues. You're right. There's, they haven't seen probably Burnley in action. They signed a striker, didn't they, from Cannes? I'm going to try and pronounce his name. Huntonji. That's the best I can do. Sorry, fella, if I've got it wrong. But I don't know if he's going to be a starter. I don't know. His record seems to be, I think we're looking 1 goal in 4, so not necessarily prolific, but maybe he is a focal point for others to work off. Remains to be seen. Weghorst would be, but whether he's staying there, I wouldn't imagine so.
And no, he wasn't involved in that friendly last week that I quoted earlier.
Yeah, no. And after his, taste of European or the Euro Championships and Manchester United, maybe he wants something else. I don't know. There's a lot of that, isn't there? There's a lot of I don't know about this side, because they if you look at the squad list, it's a very good squad for this level. We've talked about Sanderberger. I think he's a good midfielder. They obviously pinched him off Sheffield United to try and make an assault on the Premier League. Didn't obviously work out. But they've still got the likes of Connor Roberts I think he was good in the Championship last season. I rate him quite a bit.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? Company loaned him out to Leeds. Clearly didn't really like him. Parker's kept him. So that would suggest that there's one change immediately.
Yeah. Like I say, I think he was a good player. Despite him winding, I think he wound Luton players out, wound Nathan Jones up, didn't he, in that first game of the season in the Championship, the last time the two clubs were in there. But it's all fair in love and war in that respect. Got no particular issues with him. I just think he's quite a useful player, and certainly at the Championship level anyway. So it's a really tough one. I mean, they've got the likes of Kolyosho, who was at one point in the season in the Premier League getting rave reviews. So if he can take that month or whatever it was where that was happening in the Premier League and rip it up in the Championship, he's going to be a very dangerous player. He's very direct and very quick, and nobody likes that. No one. And if he carries on in that vein of form, then they'll have very useful supply lines. I don't know much about what their defence is going to be like. Maybe that's a like for like at the moment for Luton, maybe not quite like for like. I mean, we're so threadbare. We're talking about the potential of 3 centre backs with 2 or 3 senior Luton appearances between them.
Yeah, let's bring it back to Luton then. Obviously, we don't know exactly how the Town are going to line up, but predictably, ahead of the press conference ahead of the game, Rob was asked about Ted Mengi, and here's what he had to say with regards to the influential central defender.
Yeah, he's trained the last few days, so he should be fine. I went a little bit grayer after 14 minutes on Saturday. So no, there were none of the lads that have been out injured are going to be fit and available yet, but they're getting closer. Amari's the closest out of those boys. And we're still working hard in the market at the moment, but I suppose like everyone, it's difficult. And we'll see if there's anything in there for the next few days. But as we stand at the moment, it's where we're at. I would say it's been, challenging because we've still got that, like I've said, that sort of hangover, a lot of the injuries from last season because they were long-term ones. So I've been juggling that a little bit. Been working hard in the market, trying to do a bit, and we all have. So we've still got 1 or 2 that we've got to try and bring in. But I've seen a great attitude and focus from the players. And if I concentrate on the ones that are here right now and available, they've been great in giving us everything. So, we go in with a lot of positivity and hope, as you're doing to every season, knowing that I think over the next few weeks we're going to get stronger as well.
Yep. We're going to wait and see with regards to Ted. Obviously, he has confirmed that there'll be no Amari Bell for this game, albeit he's the closest one of the injured however many to return. That also means that there'll be no Marv, there'll be no Mads, there'll be no... I've got to have to go through the back of my head to work this one out. There'll be no Jacob Brown, there'll be no Reece Burke. I think that's everyone, isn't it?
Daiki Hashioka.
Yeah, Hashioka we're not going to comment on for a while. He's out long term. That's pretty much it, isn't it? Can't think of anyone else that either way. The ones that have been out recently, they're staying out.
It's mainly the whole defence.
Yeah, they're staying out. So we're looking at, depending on where we go with Mengi, you're looking at a back 3 of certainly Joe Johnson on the left-hand side of it, certainly Rue Walters on the right side of it, and then it's whether it's Mengi or Tom Holmes in the centre of it. Presumably, I don't think Holmes would get in ahead of Walters down the right side of the 3. What do you think?
From what I've seen, he's a centre of the park centre back that is there to head it and kick it away, and it's going to be quite the baptism of fire for him because obviously signed and then loaned back to Reading where he'd grown up as a footballer, but that was League One stuff, isn't it? So we've seen from Luton's rise from League One to the Championship, how much of a challenge that is, and how difficult it is. So it will be a tough. It would be a tough game for him regardless because of the Championship. Because playing against Burnley, some of the pace and the power that they potentially will have, it may be a difficult night.
Indeed so, yep. Two pivots in midfield. Baptiste is going to be one of them. Presumably Jordan Clark will be the other one. Pelly's the other option, of course. I think Clark's slightly ahead of Pelly, isn't he, based on what we saw pre-season?
Yeah, I think so. That's, it's no disrespect to Pelly, but Clark has looked very sharp from what I've seen, and I think he was fantastic in the Championship when Luton went up. He didn't get the first 4 or 5 months of the season in the Premier League because he was injured from that Bochum pre-season game last summer. So it took him a while to get up to speed in the Premier League, and then you're trying to get up to speed in the Premier League, aren't you? It's a very difficult task. There was, some good spells, but I found quite a lot of the time it might get caught in possession, or his passing wasn't as accurate as can be, which is a really strange one because when you see him play in the Championship, he's the playmaker, and his touch is good, and his movement is good, and his vision is good, and I guess that's just an example of the gulf between the Premier League and the Championship. But certainly in the Championship, I expect him to be a very useful player for Luton this season.
Yeah, agreed with that. And then, of course, in front of them, we can put our house on who that is, barring any late injuries. That would be Doughty on the left wing, Chio on the right wing, Chong and Morris in behind Elijah Adebayo. That's set in stone, really, isn't it? That until we sign players. There's not going to be any sort of change to that front five sort of thing. And that part of the pitch, absolutely fine. You're comfortable. There isn't a team in this league that you wouldn't fancy that five to go up against and create. Oh, you can't say they'll score goals because obviously they've got to put the ball in the back of the net, but the chances will come naturally, even more so in this league than they did in the last one. And towards the middle and end of last season, they were coming pretty regularly, those chances.
They were. They created a lot of chances. They scored more goals than they did in the Championship season. And though I wouldn't say you should look too far into pre-season game, they created a number of decent chances against a very good Celta Vigo side in the final preparation game. So I think that for sure that that's not really at all where the concern is, because they've managed to do that in the Premier League to a commendable degree, and Eli and Morris double figures themselves. I know there's a couple of penalties in there as well, but you still got to score them. And they as a pairing, they cause so much mischief in Championship defences. It's one of the main reasons why Luton got up 2 seasons ago. No problems with that front lineup whatsoever, and add Chong into the mix. I'm very excited to see what Chong could do in the Championship, because I thought he was fantastic in the second half of the Premier League season. So you add that into the mix, and it's a very positive, progressive lineup at the top. It's just the weakness is obviously at the back, and then the unknown quantity perhaps of Shandon Baptiste, but Edwards rates him very highly, and he's come from good stock at Brentford.
Yeah, he has indeed. Yeah, it'll be good to see him on his competitive debut for the club. Like I expected of Baptiste this season. Of course, there'll still be reinforcements to come between now and September to help him in that regard. We're not done in midfield. Rob has confirmed that. We will sign another midfielder. Whether it's a permanent or a loan, that will probably depend on how they keep on getting messed about or otherwise between now and the end of the transfer window. But yeah, the one thing I did take from the friendlies that I saw and the highlights of the friendlies that got put out, we play some lovely football. There's some really nice football being played. And for me, that's probably the most important thing in pre-season, that they've got that cohesive kind of continuity. Because so often you see in pre-season, you can tell a side that has got to gel together. It's clunky, isn't it? And it stops and stutters. That's not the case with us. Some of the football we played, of the highlights that I saw of that Dundee United game in particular, And I reference that in properly because their next game was their first league game. Some of the football we played in that game was absolutely lovely. And if we play that in the Championship, maybe not against the top sides in the Championship, but certainly the lower sides in the Championship, one of them will take a nice beating. And that's the kind of confidence that as a fan, not being arrogant or anything, it's just the football was that good. You can't say what's not there. It was so good to watch.
Yeah, that's the continuity they're going to have from having so much of the core group in that squad. The obviously only difference is that you've got Shandon Baptiste where Ross Barkley were playing. I mean, you can't compare the two. That's not fair on them, but it's the Championship. He was a useful Premier League player. He's done it in the Championship as well. So it's just an unknown quantity for us because, they played most of their pre-season games in a different country and we didn't go and watch them. Whether you can judge it by that or not, I thought it was, a decent game against Celta Vigo. Again, it's just a friendly. So, this is where the real stuff happens. But, I think that Rob has said they're a lot further advanced at this stage than they were last time because they bought so many players and had to gel on top of trying to cope and manage a first ever season in the Premier League and get used to that. And we all saw what happened in the first two games, particularly. It was just like, whoa, we ain't in Kansas anymore. Toto, it's one of those. Whereas they're not going to have this anymore. Most of those players have played in the Championship. They know what it takes to get up, but they've also played with each other in the Premier League and had that cohesiveness where they earned a lot of plaudits from neutrals. They did. That's only going to bode well in terms of hitting the ground running. We just would have liked to have hit the ground running with no injury crisis because it's still there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I see no reason at all why we won't hit the ground running. Now, I'm not necessarily suggesting that equates to a win against Burnley, but if we use it over a longer sample size of 7 or 8 games or something, I'd be quite comfortable that after 7 or 8 games, we'll be in a better position, certainly than where we were the last time we were in the Championship, where we couldn't get a win for love nor money in them first 7 or 8 games, picked up a few draws here or there. But we were way down the table, weren't we, after 7 or 8 games? People sometimes forget that we finished 3rd, but even when Rob took over, we were still 10th. Mm-hmm. I'd be much more confident that we'll be in the top 10 at the end of that 7 or 8 games. By the time September's finished, for example, I'd be much more confident that we'll be in the top 10 than anywhere outside it. Whereas 2 seasons ago, no one really knew because we were in a similar situation, wasn't we? We still had lingering effects of the injuries of that playoff season and the disappointment of it. And you kind of got the feeling that there was a bit of a hangover from losing in the playoffs and we hadn't really put it to bed and dealt with it in the same way that Rob's put that Premier League season to bed and dealt with it. Not put it to bed in the extent that we're going to forget about it forever because everyone is going to use the disappointment of not staying up as fuel to get up, but just we've dealt with it. It was what it was, but we're ready for what comes. You didn't really get the feeling that Nathan had done that. He didn't have a lot of time, to be fair, because that season started early because of the World Cup, didn't it?
Yeah.
So there were all sorts of tangibles, and of course the playoffs the previous season, it was a really truncated sort of pre-season. But I just feel like Rob's got us in a better place to start the season, as I say, as a collective of games at the start of the season. And the fixtures after this game, we mentioned it when we did the fixtures, level out an awful lot after this first game. Really couldn't ask for a much better first 2 months to the season, no disrespect to anyone else. So I really think we'll be in a good place at the end of September, regardless of what happens on Monday night.
I think so. I know some people won't want to sort of assess it in that way, but I think it's a very sensible way to take it in a batch of games in many of the same way that I think John Still used to say, what's the point of looking at the table until 10 games in till you know what's going on? Some would say maybe even just before Christmas.
Well, I mean, when we were kids, they never even produced a thing till about 5 or 6 games in, did they? I mean, admittedly, we're old, but it was a thing, wasn't it? When there was no social media and no internet or anything, and you just had to get your tables off the newspapers or CFAX or whatever, they wouldn't waste newspaper space on the tables until there was at least something to, until you could at least fill the form guide part of it. They wouldn't bother with it, would they? So, I mean, and as I've said throughout this podcast and the season preview one, this league has a whole different look on September the 3rd or 4th than what it does on August the 3rd or 4th because of this bonkers situation whereby the transfer window is allowed to stay open a month after the season starts. Just stop the transfer window on Thursday night and we all know where we stand. But that is not the case. So all of the predictions and everything else have to come with that caveat to them. But I'm still comfortable that we will, over the collective period that I suggested, be in a much better place than we were the last time we were in this league. And when you think of what happened at the end of that season, if we're in a much better place at the end of that first 2 months, logic will tell you that we're going to be there or thereabouts come the end of it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, everybody wants a result, don't they? But I think performance against Burnley is going to be so key because...
I would agree. Listen, if we get an absolute arse handed to us on Monday night, there will be panic set in among the fan base. I don't think there would be from within. They appreciate that this is a tough game, and I think that they'll assess it over the course of a few games. But if we can be competitive on Monday, even without our defence, even if, let's say, and I don't think we will, but let's say we lose 2-1 or something, put up a good show, much like the Premier League game down here last season, I think we can move on from there in a positive outlook. Of course, we want to win the game. We owe them a win down here, let's be honest. But if it doesn't happen, as long as the performance is fine, particularly in the forward areas, if we struggle in the forward areas, knowing that the defence is dodgy at the moment as well, then you're kind of like, ooh. But I don't think that'll be the case.
No, I think performance is really key in this one. Obviously, yeah, you do want a result. You want the first day of the season to be a good kick-off point, but you ain't gonna blow promotion in the first game, and equally you're not going to gain promotion. And the Championship is such an unpredictable league. Leeds at some point last season would have felt a shoe-in for automatic promotion, and look what happened. We're going to be playing them this season in the Championship because it didn't happen. So it's such a ridiculously long slog of a season where anything can happen, and there's probably currently no outstanding candidate that's going to run away with it. There are teams that have the potential, and Burnley are one of them. So you have to give them that respect. But I think given the issues that have been hung over from last season in the back line, it's one of really good performance, first of all, to shake the cobwebs of last season, if there are any. I'm not convinced there are, to be honest. I think that the hangover will be minimal. Certainly in the long run. So yeah, it'll be interesting tactically from that point of view. But if you go at them head to head in an attacking way, I think that's probably the best option at the moment. It's the only option at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, just play the Luton way, have a good go at it, attack it, don't fear it, and what we get out of it, we get out of it, and hopefully that's a positive result. I certainly don't think that just because we haven't got our strongest defence in line that we can't win the game. I don't think that at all. As I mentioned in the preview podcast, I'm quite comfortable with the fact that Walters and Johnson will step up to the plate. Just because they're not Bell and Burke doesn't mean to say that they can't play football. So I'm kind of comfortable with that. And what will be. Listen, it's going to be a good game. It's going to be an entertaining game. It's going to be a game full of goals, or at least I believe that to be the case. So what will be will be. We will finish this podcast as we did all of last season with our score predictions. James begins the defence of his title from last season with a grand total of 2 winning predictions from the 38 games. As you're the defending champion, you can go first. Luton versus Burnley. How does it finish?
I think that it will finish 2-2.
2-2.
2-2. Yeah, I think there's got to be goals in it because, the defensive, as well as we hope that they might play and the way that as well as you've just said, we hope they might step up to the plate, which I think hopefully will be the case. I think Burnley equally a very good team. They've got some of the players in that squad that help get them up. They've got some very nifty, quick players that caused a bit of kerfuffle in the Premier League, and that's not to be sniffed at. So, I think they'll score, we'll score. And it was that way in the Championship. It wasn't necessarily the opener, was it? Yeah, it was the opener, wasn't it? Last time round. When Dan Potts scored. Yeah. So I think there's always goals in this game, and that'll be the case. I think it'll be 2-2.
Yeah, I think there'll be goals in this one as well. Can't see this being low scoring. Last time we kicked off a Championship campaign, first season in it, drew 3-3, didn't we, against Middlesbrough? Night that none of us will ever forget. And
the sunny scorcher.
The sunny scorcher.
That comes back around every time this year, doesn't it?
I just had it.
Yeah, saw it online.
And I think we're going to get identical this time around.
3-3.
Even with our first choice defence, this was a tough assignment.
Somebody's been out in the sun a bit too long.
Well, we had enough threes last season against us, didn't we? So we might as well start off with one this season. Even with our first choice defence out, this was going to be a tough assignment. You know, we know exactly what we're getting into. The fact that we're probably going to be missing a couple makes it even tougher. It looks like, as we said, Lyle Foster will be fit for them. He's going to be a bit of a problem, but our strikers will be as much of a problem for them as what theirs is going to be for us. You know, there's got to be goals. You went 2-2, I'll go 1 up on it. I'll go 3 each. And to be honest, nice 3-3 draw to start the season off will be fine, because we'll have proved that we're okay in attack. We know we're going to have problems defensively for the first few games. 3-3 against one of the title challengers, that'll get us up and running, and we can all head off to Portsmouth with a bit of wind in our sails.
Well, it'd be exciting, wouldn't it? If it's anything like that Middlesbrough game, it was a hell of a roller coaster.
What a night.
Also because it was the first game back in the Championship, but from coming up, the excitement was high, and it was a night game as well, wasn't it? That's a good point. It was a Friday game there.
Friday night, yeah.
So yeah, well, you got me quite excited about this game now. I mean, I was looking forward to it anyway, but if you're going to have a 6-goal thriller, or a 4-goal thriller, come on.
We're gonna have a certain amount of goal thriller anyway. That's for sure. That's pretty much it for this episode of the podcast. As always, plenty of time this time to get your score predictions into us. Whack them on the YouTube comments. Any correct answers, we'll give you a shout out in the review podcast, which will come out in the middle of next week. Obviously, the game takes place on Monday, so we're not going to get a chance to record the review episode until sort of Tuesday. So you're not going to get that out until sort of Wednesday, Thursday-ish, really. Going to be quite late next week, has to be said. Don't blame us. Blame Sky, and there might be an awful lot of blaming Sky over the course of this season if our fixture list is anything to go by. Thanks very much for watching, listening, however it is that you've consumed this podcast. If you did miss the season preview podcast, you've still got a bit of time to watch that 2-parter that we put out earlier in the week. And if you did miss it and you've not watched it yet, we will be back to preview and review every single Championship game that Luton Town take part in this season, as we did with the Premier League last season. So you've not got rid of us just yet. Season 8 is up of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast is up and running. Thanks very much for watching or listening to the podcast. Thanks to our new studio hosts, the Barber Club and the Lower Level in Luton. We really appreciate you housing the studio for us. Thanks very much to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro as always, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you'll see on set, which will be improved as we go along over the course of the next few weeks. We're not a finished product with this new studio just yet. Until next time, which will be the review episode of this, high scoring Burnley clash, if we've got it right. Till next time, come on you Hatters.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul. We're Luton people.